Here they come. Defend this camp with your lives. Zaitan will fall beneath the might of the Pact.
Alright guys, welcome, we're back. So, returning on our adventure with Cauliflower, would you believe there have been 3 separate attempts of mine over the past month to record this video, and they've all gone awry. So our plan here is to meet with Chahern at the Blighted Battleground, and if you're feeling a little bit out of the loop with the story, don't worry, we'll catch up in a second. But the main thing is I wanted to show the third and final invasion of Ore, and that's this one here, the Southern Invasion, which currently reads as weapon supplies are being escorted to the southern shores. Without additional firepower, the gates of Ore will never fall. So let's get a move on immediately. We're going to run along this bridge here at the side. And you'll recall, with the other 2 invasions, we did it with a ton of other players in a big squad. Now, I made 2 separate attempts to do this video with the large squads, but this event, unfortunately, seems to be very easy to beat. And in particular, on one big occasion, we had loads of people ready. We had like 50 people. But the invasion was done, and we couldn't find a way to reset it, and it was like the pact was just too good. So then another attempt, I tried to record this video when I didn't have anyone there at all, and that got messed up for other reasons. So it's just been a depressing one to try and get off the ground. So today, I'm just going for it. I can see here that there's something with the event going on, and we're going to run through and see if we can see just a little bit leaving Fort Trinity here off to the side. So you'll recognize here, Cauliflower is now visiting Thunderhead and Thunderhead Battery. This is well, we've actually experienced a little bit of story already with Sierra and, you know, the story of Ton. So we've actually already seen this, but with Cauliflower's eyes, it's quite fresh. Instead of going to the left into this cave over here, we're going to escort ourselves along on the right over this bridge. And I really want to stop and smell the roses and take it slow, but maybe we won't really have that luxury.
To the pale tree.
So here we're going across Shark's Teeth Archipelago. I always say that word incorrectly. And it's kind of a cool area, honestly. Let's get our minions up so we can actually fight some of these dangerous Wizen as we go further along. It's a kind of a cool area for the seas that are to the south here. So if we swim out, I may actually do that. Yeah, let's jump into the water. Let's kill this risen pirate and jump out. It won't necessarily kill all of our minions. You'll notice it's just water as far as the eye can see. And that's reasonably rare for Guild Wars. There have been a few situations like this that we've come across before. We could, of course, swim down. But here it's really kind of special. It's called the Sea of Ellen. And it really just goes out for a huge area here within the Straits of Devastation. And hints at this long river that never existed in Guild Wars 1. Those of you who saw the original series will know a little of this. And down into what eventually will be expansion areas. But for the longest time, there was no expansion out there. And it was just kind of one of these mystical, exciting places that I'd look out and think, oh, maybe one day. And it seems that day's actually kind of come. So, yeah, the Sea of Ellen, and I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about that. Also, the bridge. This is a similar situation to what we saw in Bloodtide Coast ages ago, you know. The idea that in lore, this stretch of water is actually a huge causeway. You know, I like to think of it a little bit like we have it here in the UK and how far we are from the rest of Europe, and you know, you have the immense Channel Tunnel going through. But here in game, they can represent it with just this small bridge. I like to think that this is actually some ridiculous feat of pact engineering. Amazingly, way later in the story, and this is not a big spoiler, way later in the story, we are actually going to go on a boat ride involving all these waterways. And they just kind of suggest that the boat goes through this bridge somehow. And it's really weird to actually come here and physically see how sturdy and, you know, like, real it is. So, yeah, let's move on. Now, I do have a little bit of an update with the LP. So, for those who haven't been watching it, it's been a long time again. This is the second long break we've had in the series. It's been about a month since you've seen an episode, even longer than that, actually. And all kinds of events have come in and gone. The entirety of the Halloween event, which I've been making loads of videos on, has come and gone. They've done numerous new updates to runes, and there's been balance passes, and there's been a lot of new changes. So one thing that's really going on with the series in terms of production is juggling all those other videos with these. And then I had some real life issues quite recently. So I think the episodes are going to change a little bit. I still want them to be really high quality, and we're going to look at everything and focus, but the length of the episodes might be going down a bit, just so that I can sustainably put it all out and not have these gaps, okay? So I'm really sorry to announce that. It's very disappointing to me. I really like this, you know, every episode is like a movie. But we're going to have to shrink the length of them down a bit, and hopefully that will just work. That also might mean that the vistas and stuff we see each episode get shorter. We'll have to see. Anyway, so check it out. All right, we've moved forwards.
They've made it to Lassiat Gate. Get up there and help them out.
And it seems we may actually have one of the events here. So the escorted supplies are on their way. And they're moving to a place called Lassiat Gate. The thing is, I want to show it, but I also want to show all these outposts and things that we've captured as we go along. If you guys can imagine, the events would take us through these windy corridors and areas, and, you know, we'd claim them just like we would with the other invasions. It seems that even here, my attempt to show you the southern invasion, we're only going to see right the very end, I guess. Let's follow these packed soldiers along. And then I guess once we've cleared it, we'll come back and we'll look at some of these landmarks. Our ultimate goal, of course, to be to meet Trahearne, because we just saw underwater two very special dragon minions. We saw an eye and a mouth of Zaitan, and they concern us. Trahearne seems to think that at least the mouth is something you often see before large assaults. That isn't exactly the same as what we saw in Lion's Arch before the Battle of Claw Island. But he believes that they have a hunting ground nearby, and we voted on using the mirror. Remember? The mirror from early in the story to try and lure it out. And that indeed is what we're going to do. All right, so everybody's moving forward. Hold on. Here's the weapons transport itself. This is what the main event is. Use packed weaponry from the weapons transport to break through the Lassiat Gate. I think that's how we say it. And, yeah, if we clear these risen out, hopefully, there's no other players to do such a thing. Hopefully this weapons transport will move. I love how this one is a packed Marmux. Very, you know, this is very Char on the Southern Assault. And then we got the subs that we're escorting on the other ones, and golems at the north. It's like a little bit of flavor from each of the races there. And we'll hopefully see some Doliacs and maybe some Oak Hearts and whatnot too. But yeah, okay, actually, so I guess the weapons transport there are players here. I love that about Guild Wars. There's always players. And here, this is called the Lone Post. I guess it's just our job to break this down. And hopefully with this, we'll be inside.
So pretty.
Yeah, so there you go. Use packed weaponry. We run in. Hopefully they'll trigger a little bit of dialogue. The Arcanists are moving in. You immediately start to feel that familiar awe here. We've visited a couple of times on the series so far. These creepy-ass trees with the weird tendrils wobbling around and whatnot.
To defend the landing. As long as we hold this landing, we can keep sending troops into the temple.
All right, cool. Look, and it's Agent Arwina. I think we recognize that name, right? I missed the helicopter that deposited them and is now undoubtedly flying back off.
Thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah, I could be back home scouting centaurs right now.
Okay, and the humans regret coming this far. Yeah, I wouldn't mind fighting some centaurs while we're here. Here you go, look, another ladder coming down. They're going to deposit some more people. War Master Uho. So you saw there, they just mentioned a temple. So all was a holy land. And it is filled with temples to the gods. And it seems the Pact have got their eyes on a very specific one.
Our landing has been secured. We'll leave the rest up to you.
You all fought well to make it here. Keep up the fight and hold the landing for us. The rest of you, follow me. We must press onward. Behind me.
All right, and they're going to go do that. I'm not going to follow them. It's a bit dangerous for my tastes out there right now. And you'll notice that their event is actually taking them quite deep inland, while we're actually just going to be going south a little bit for our story. But yeah, they're dealing with a very specific temple. The Temple of Balthazar here. And you see, now that we have completed the southern invasion, the very end of it, breaking the gate, great, all right. Now that we've done that, they're actually sending reinforcements up. So this is a really cool map. Hopefully I've shown you what's so cool about all the Straits of Devastation metas right now. But what's really beautiful is these metas feed another meta that can only trigger if reinforcements are coming from the rest of the map. It could be implemented a little bit better and a little bit differently, but I really love that D-Day kind of approach. And yeah, you got a bit of the flavor of the South invasion here. Who have we got? We've got the Order of Whispers agents here.
May the shadows embrace you.
May they embrace you too. We've made it into Ore. We can't celebrate yet, though. Holding this place from the Risen will be challenging. And I like how we get to openly talk with Whispers here, even though we're Priory. And so you see you get these lone mask stuff. We won't be a secret here for long. And that's true, that we will be attacked in just a moment. There was a cool looking Order of Whispers ring I could buy there, actually, too. Tactician. I'm more of an engineer than a soldier, but they've got me out here to help hold this place so the rest of the troops can move through. You're in awe. You can't afford to be a whiny coward. Wow, no, I don't want to say that. If you're here, it's because they believe you can do it. That's comforting. Oh, I wish it was true. I'm here because they need every person they can get to hold this post. We absolutely must be victorious. I do intend to give it my all. I like it. Kind of, not really a cowardly char, but a char that's not really to do with the fighting. Sounds like they're pretty desperate. We need every person we can get. We absolutely must succeed in this fight. I just hope my meager battlefield experience is enough. I'll give it my all. Oh, this is a cool color of char as well. I really like that. Maybe we should make one someday that looks like that. So yeah, there's these little like nooks and crannies. You can do a bit of armor repair here. You can man these arrow carts to try and defend when the Orions and Zaitan inevitably stages a counterattack. And over here, sneaky up on this beach is a waypoint. But this only unlocks for access once the southern invasion is done. This is the lone post. All right, so yeah, turning our backs on the depths of Ore just for a moment here. And staying on the fringes. I love the transition here as well, by the way. With the northern invasion, it's all foliage, and then it's just hell on the other side. And then with Fort Trinity in the central, it's all foliage and hell on the other side. Here on south, you actually get to see, you know, that's like the closest living tree to Ore right there. You know, and there's just something really profound about that to me that I really enjoy. Oh, look at that. The Lassiat Gate has just been destroyed. And the Pact are... Oh, no. They're establishing a camp. Okay, no. When it said it had been destroyed, I thought it meant, like, Zaitan had reclaimed it. There is a ton of content here. So let's quickly... And especially this large tower is a really prominent landmark we're going to look at in just a second. But there is a lot of content here. In fact, if you look to the south, there's, like, a sunken building here. Kind of reminds me of... I don't know why, but the Temple of Barge in Final Fantasy X, if you saw my series on that. Like, just swimming around there where you wake up right near the start of the game after you leave Dreams, Anakin.
Orion Shore and broken down Lassiat Gate. Help them hold the landing.
There you go. I think she's literally speaking to us because if you look at the map here, you'll see that there's a flag and the Risen Hordes are attacking now. As soon as we left, they started attacking. So Carver says, we're going to bring the fight to Zaitan and his forces on Ore. What's your role? I'm leading the assault forces across these islands to the shores of Ore to deliver Zaitan some retribution. Okay, well, what's the assault plan? We'll hold this camp and push forward to clear the path into Ore. From there, it's up to others to finish the job. You make this fight with Zaitan sound personal. My husband and child were slain by the Risen. They left me with no family and no home. God damn. So she's a human. That reminds me very much of like the earlier stories where we were seeing like Triskel Kay getting attacked. And as far as Caraflower's scene, she had a little bit of experience on the fringes of Kryta as well, obviously, when she was researching into the fate of Kaladbog. That's terrible. Is that why you're heading up this attack? All I care about now is killing as many Risen as I can and driving a dagger through Zaitan's heart. If that creature has one. Does Zaitan have a heart? What a great question to pose here. So we get some Hylic as well. It's good to see you guys. This island marks the halfway point between our land and Ore. The path will only become more treacherous the further you advance. Do you have anything I could use? Well, they have ancient emerald Orion spoons. These are pretty, so pretty. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I just love this idea of hopping through these small islands as we travel south. You know, I can imagine this is like a single-player RPG or a really expanded game with an enormous... You know, an entire explorable or campaign mission would be set on island hopping, and there'd be, you know, like loads of them, not just two. It's kind of a cool idea. So, as for the sunken ruins to the south... let's not... Well, no, we can swim out to them. Let's swim out. There is a waypoint there. They're kind of a weird part of the map in that none of the events really take you close to them, but they have lots of events going on. So you can see here that we can escort Captain Guida and her team back to Kadrijan's jetty. This actual beach I'm standing on right now, a really dangerous drake can spawn on. And you remember I've shown you guys tonics. And now novelties, full novelty UI is in the game, allowing us to instantly tonic very quickly. One of the most famous fun tonics in all of Guild Wars 2 at release was acquired right here. It's a tonic that turns you into a baby Quaggan. We haven't seen many of those in the series, but we've seen a few, and they are adorable, right? Where you can actually turn into them. And it was such a prominent tonic that over the years, the devs kept doing updates to them to like allow them to jump and giving different variations from different areas of the game. Kind of cool. But yeah, so there's kind of this nasty place here. There's also another really interesting area. Well, we can look at that later, but there's like a hidden champion boss nearby too. All right, moving back up here. Let's have a look at that tower I mentioned, which is a hell of a landmark. What we're actually about to look at is going to be relevant in the story again. way later in one of the expansions too. So this is going to be one of those moments where I ask you guys to try and remember. I know that there's so much. In fact, here's a little challenge for you. When was the last time I said to specifically remember something, and what was it? Does anyone know? I'd be very curious in the comments. But here you'll see that there is an old building. It's called the Vizier's Tower. And there's like an entrance here, at least I've always thought of it as an entryway. But it's completely corrupt and destroyed and just all bashed in. Now, Vizier. You may remember that Viziers were quite a common title for some of the men of Or in prominent positions. We've heard of Viziers already. And in particular, we heard of one specific one, didn't we? Well, that was the Vizier of the Cataclysm, right? The guy that read the Lost Scrolls. Traherne told us all about it back when we were in the Vision of Or with the Pale Tree's Dream. Well, the tower's really huge, and if you look at the sky, so intimidating. If you try and scout around it, you find you can't really get up to it very easily. But right here near the Lasciate Gate, if we climb onto this this Pride Rock here, they just revealed, yesterday, the new Lion King trailer, so obviously it's Pride Rock. If you look, there is actually a little area you can jump through, and so this is a jumping puzzle. When was the last jumping puzzle we did? Every map has them. Most of them I've skipped and not shown. They are very cool, guys. I've already got a dedicated series on all of them where I play them all co-op. And I've talked about that many times, which is why they haven't really appeared in the LP. But this one's really cool for the story and the lore, so we have to show it off. Of course, it's a great place for the devs to show this as well. The Vizier's Tower, the story of the Vizier, right on the borders of Or, because there's going to be a lot of players who maybe haven't been paying too much attention to the story just yet, and this will be sort of a recap and a reminder for them of why Or is the way it is. Truly, in my mind, when I used to play Guild Wars 1 and we heard about all these things, I used to imagine, like, the Vizier as being really central to the nation. But Guild Wars 2 kind of reveals his tower here was on the borders. I don't know whether that has any particular relevance, but we'll see. Anyway, so it's one of these cool jumping puzzles where it is dangerous. If you fall, you can die, and I'm very aware of that right now. But it's kind of more like a puzzle, actual where do you go, you know? And it's, if you can find your way onto this ledge here by clambering around on the coral, and you don't mess up any of the jumps, you'll find you can slowly worm your way up. Look at the view you get while you're up here. It's truly crazy, isn't it? So yeah, worming our way up. The hardest jumps are right at the end, getting onto this Orion coral that's here, now raised from the seabed. Alright, it's that jump there is really, really scary. Alright, and we die if we fall, and you can see I'm a little bit slippery there. And then what we want to do is, I feel really, really fat-fingered right now. I feel really scared. We want to, like, slowly get onto this, and there we go. Woo! We're up. Beautiful. Okay, so we're very high up. Our reward for this, the first time we do this on account, we get our ding, and it says the Vizier's Tower. And there's a ton of things we can interact with. Check it out, including a vista. Although damaged from its time under the ocean, this tower remains as a giant testament of Orion construction. Beautiful. And so we can look at a few things. First of all, a mural of Abaddon. This is awesome. So, this mural of the forgotten god Abaddon is weathered with age and marred by water damage, but his eyes seem to glitter with icy cunning, and his countenance is still suffocatingly imposing. It's so cool, the way that they've written that. Examine more closely. An inscription reads, "To act with magic, act within reason, but to act without mercy." So Abaddon we're familiar with, hopefully. We just visited his sunken temple at the bottom of the oceans. This was the god that gave everyone magic, and the others didn't like that. They went to war, and he was cast down. He and his people were destroyed. Similar to how Or has just risen from the oceans here, this god favored a group of people called Marganites who lived on oceans here, and where Or's just risen, a similar thing happened here in the Crystal Desert. It was once upon a time an ocean that has now risen. So it's kind of really fitting that the Vizier, who read the Lost Scrolls and sunk this nation once upon a time, followed Abaddon, who kind of had a similar history going on. Why the Vizier worshipped Abaddon is really more of a Guild Wars 1 story, where you find out he venerated a race called the Titans, and he disliked a race called the Masat. In fact, if we have a look over here, we can find a broken Masat statue. It says, this crumbling statue is too decayed to truly portray the elegance and horror of the being it represents. Some of the scars in the stones look to have been made by a blade rather than eroded by time, as though someone in the throes of anger struck it with a sword. So there's some. This is basically incredible fan service and detailing for Guild Wars 1 players that rounds out the first villain of the original game, the Undying Lich, Vizier Kilbron. This is the tower he read the scrolls from. When we see cutscenes, there will be a cutscene later where we get a glimpse of the man again. Just know that it's right here in the tower. And this will be relevant in the story, even in the expansions later. It's really badass, so try to remember this place. You've also got, like, there's just so many interactables. This is one of my favorite places to come in all of Guild Wars. This book is not as old as the relics that surround it. Many of the pages have been torn out, and the title reads, The Logs of the Orient Expedition by Mollen, esteemed explorer. So what we find here is a member of the Priory in recent years came here and left this log, Mollen. I've arrived at the Vizier's tower through great peril. My health declines, and my mental state has been compromised by the horrors I've witnessed. I've begun to accept that I will not survive a return journey. Like, I love the way that this is written. For us as players in the game, it feels like we've only just entered Or, but in terms of lore, we could be many miles in now. Read further. I see only these awful statues, and I'm not sure what I'd hope to find. Is he talking about the Massart statue here, maybe? Some shred of information of the terrible Massart, perhaps? Or maybe a glimpse into the life of the Vizier, who wrought such destruction upon Or. All I've learned is that Or is lost to us forever. I don't believe this land will ever heal. I will leave my notes here for someone else to find. I do not expect the Risen will allow me to leave. So, what I love about this as well is here's an impartial third party of the Diamond Priory who's been so devastated by what they've seen and upset and rocked by what they've seen. They think that Or is lost forever and will never heal. And while we hear this, at the same time in the story, we're here with Trahearne. Trahearne's quest isn't to necessarily take out Zaitan and stop the Risen and stuff. Certainly for Kaith, that's a thing. Trahearne wants to heal this place. Trahearne has spent much of his adult life here and still believes it might happen. If that isn't a testament to Trahearne's character, where other people see this place and they turn their back on it instantly and they're like, hell no. Trahearne thinks he can make this place nice and green and lush. Like, look around us. Look at this. Where would you even begin? This isn't like an engineering project. This is like, you know, countless generations of work. But Trahearne thinks it can be done. There's also a vase here. Check this out. This vase was likely once a statement of taste and wealth, but now it is crusted with the dirt and grime of passing centuries. And, you know, it was flooded for a long time. Examine more closely, while the symbols on the vase are barely legible and seem to represent a lengthy speech of some sort. The vase is too damaged for the speech itself to be deciphered, even by the most knowledgeable of scholars. So translating old Orient works will become more of a theme later. And here we got another book. Though dusty and clearly abandoned, this book is in remarkable condition. The title reads, The Vizier of the Tower, Benevolence or Madness? Scrawled inside the cover is Property of Mollen, esteemed explorer. So yeah, you might have thought it'd be really weird that Mollen can't find any information in his journal. Well, here's a book that he was writing. So what does he have to say? The Vizier's decision to read from the Lost Scrolls to defeat the invading Char has been seen as noble by some and deranged by others. Many scholars claim that a Char victory in Or would have been preferable to the nation's complete destruction. And in fact, what did Caraflower see very recently in Sparkfly Fen? Well, the Hylic seemed to believe that it, you know, wait, it was Sylvari discussing it, right? So actually, that wasn't even Caraflower. They were Sylvari there, but it was Bract that was actually witnessing the conversation. I love this as well, the idea that they accept. Some people actually like what the Vizier did. Others argue that, under the circumstances, the Vizier could have made no other decision, and that the outcome of the spell could not have been foreseen. This author believes that the Vizier, though powerful and at times wise, was clearly insane. I love this, guys. First of all, bringing to mind Char armies marching through here, right? They march on Ascalon, the Searing, blah, 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 and they actually... Char were here once, or they may have gone the long way around. Remember, this river wasn't here, so they might have gone through the Scavenger's Causeway. I mean, and that would have been interesting, actually. The Char marched through here, and the Vizier is located here, which gives him time to see the devastation, and as they start to reach Arar, he's like, no, we're going to destroy it all. And it kind of works, you know. But yeah, he doesn't know the outcome. Here's what the Orions knew. There were vaults beneath Ura that the gods had been hiding all kinds of powerful artifacts. Artifacts we would later realize were associated with the Elder Dragons. But the Orions lived there. They knew that they were forbidden vaults with dangerous magics. But he needed to do something, so he read from these scrolls, you know? And he was acting within reason, but he was acting without mercy, as, you know, he followed Abaddon. And it blew the whole place up and turned him into a lich. Is that insane of him? The Vizier's Tower... I like that idea of ignorance factored into all of this. The Vizier's Tower stands in the dark belly of recently risen ore, and few have made it far enough south to examine its mysteries. Ore is clogged with undead monstrosities. Any trek into that territory would be suicide. Well, thankfully, we are now a very powerful level 80 necromancer that knows what we're doing. And by reading the book, look, we get a skill point from it. Beautiful. Should we spend that on something? Let's learn in the ways of another well. Let's unlock the Well of Corruption. Target area pulses, converting boons into conditions. And I guess we'll run that into the shade here. I'll show you guys what that looks like when it recharges. So, yeah, just really cool area, right, guys? So much to do and experience up here. That's the Vizier's Tower. And do try to remember this, because when the plot starts getting really crazy in the expansions, it will become relevant again. I guess I won't spoil how. Now, here's the thing. How do we get down? Ideally, I don't want to die to full damage, but the waters down there don't look very inviting, do they? I mean, it's ore. None of it looks... And the sun just set while we're here. None of it looks very inviting, but, maybe we can just gently, steadily come down. Usually, I find myself waypointing away. So, that would be an option. Oh, that's a bit of a drop, but I think we'll be okay if we land down here.
Destroying those creatures seems to have stalled the Risen. We may have discovered a key piece of the puzzle that is Zaitan. This deserves further investigation.
Okay, I'm not quite sure where that scholar is or the event he's talking about there, but fine. All right, so there's the Lassiate Gate, now closed once again because the southern invasion is done. The Pact failed in their assault on Izal Din Zaril. The Orion place names. Guys, the points of interest and area names and stuff are nowhere near as good anywhere else in the game as they are here in Ore. Ore is beautiful and magical, and the world building here is so cool. Like, listen to that already. Unfortunately, I don't really know, like, Turkish and all the different languages that Guild Wars 2 draws from to properly translate a lot of it. I mean, I know some of it, like the torture tombs we talked about before, as Akabar, which was that crazy tomb the Pale Tree gave us a vision of somewhere in Ore. We don't know where or why we even got it. What did they tell us to do? Seek the source? Well, you know, I know some of the translations, but not all of them. Anyway, now that the gate is closed, you might say, oh, well, that's pretty bad. But the personal story kind of works around this. So if the dynamic event isn't clear, instead of making you push it, which I actually think would have been the more interesting, fun design, they kind of let you bypass, right? So the story mission is actually to the south. The other one we did was in the water and sort of not reliant. So we're going to come to the Blighted Battleground down there. And just to quickly recap now, let's finally come into our journal. The last chapter, remember, in Victory or Death. And here, I reported back to Fort Trinity to tell Traherne about the strange eye and mouth creatures we saw. Traherne seemed to recognize the eye as the eye of Zaitan, which was acting as the dragon's advanced scouts. We set out to kill this creature in the hopes of blinding Zaitan's war effort. So it's an eye that sees all and gathers all, and it's a scout. I like the idea of a giant eye being a scout for sure. Alright, so underwater we don't get the wells, so we get the things back straight away. I'm going to stay underwater here and come through like this. This is quite creepy. You know what this reminds me of? The Lord of the Rings, the marshes near Mordor, where Frodo gets pulled into. I can't remember if that happens in the books. I listened to those audiobooks such a long time ago now. But yeah, we'll come on up here. And worm our way through on the south now. So there's another event. Protect Scholar Brendan while he examines the seabed near the Broken Spit. So here's the hidden thing I was talking about. You may think we're on the south of the map right now. And, you know, the story is going to take us here. But curiously, if you're very sneaky, you can come right up to the southern edge. And this feels very Guild Wars 1 in terms of hidden bosses and stuff, how they used to do it. If you come right along the edge, you can sneak along around here. And oh, look, there's a Hylic up there. If we get, I've got to be really scared here because I desperately don't want Caraflower to die, obviously. And it's an extremely dangerous boss we're about to look at. If we sneak up, you can come up this plateau. And look, this is a hidden, like, section of the map that most players don't even know exists about. and within it is a champion Risen Hylek. Now, do you remember at the Battle of Claw Island where we saw the first of the Risen Hylek? I pointed out that they're really dangerous. Actually, maybe Claw Island wasn't first. Maybe we saw it first with Tybalt, right, when their place was falling. Those Hylek do the poison gun attacks and are horrible. A champion version with its obscenely high level and damage that it can do, even at level 80, as much as we can brave the horrors of Ore, that thing will destroy us without a good build and very good gear. And right now, we don't have very good gear. As I mentioned, we're saving some of our bags of goods, and we've got a special plan for that later. So here's our well, the Well of Corruption. This guy had swiftness on him. Well, we just turned it into cripple, and it does reasonable damage as well. Usually, you're going to want to use the other well I already showed you on the series. This one here, the Well of Suffering, which is just more damage and vulnerability. But the Well of Suffering's pretty good for the competitive game types where there's a lot of boons around. So, coming down here, this is where the Eye is prowling. In the very south of the Straits of Devastation, and we get to continue our story through the Looking Glass, which I want to do, but as I said, unfortunately the videos are going to have to be a bit shorter, so that will be tomorrow, guys. The next episode, when we see it, we will be continuing along. We'll look at that mirror that was established oh so long ago. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys, and I will see you very shortly on the next one. Don't be scared to go back and look at Caraflower's early adventures if you've forgotten what was going on with that mirror, because it was a pretty goddamn cool story, and hey, you might want a refresher after it's been a while. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Zaitan will devour you and spit you back out to kill your loved ones. You can't resist the will of the dragon. Make your peace and die. Soon, when you're plunging your knife into the heart of your friends, thanks, Zaitan.